A fair maiden, holding a pitchfork, entered as I was trying to make sense of the many maps that were in the room. She hadn't even knocked, knowing that it wasn't locked. I hadn't bothered with the doorknob, thinking that if there was going to be an army coming here, a simple lock wasn't going to save me. She barged in with the tool, expecting some sort of fight to occur, I presume. But then she just let the pitchfork fall to the ground when she realized that there was only me and the dead monk. She was just quiet when she saw me. She didn't seem as surprised to see me as I was to see her. She must have already seen me, probably while I was reading early in the day, though it was the first time I've met eyes on another person besides the monk here in the cabin. Her eyes moved from me to the direction of the monk, who was lying in the corner, wrapped with the blankets I had used to cover him. She shook her head. She must have already knew the outcome of the battle that the monk had fought in. It seems like she didn't care that the monk had lost his life. She didn't look sad. There was no sign of grief either. What was the relationship that she had with the monk before he passed away? She went to the dining table to eat the rest of the food that was still left. I was lost for words. Before she started eating, she asked me if I had already eaten, and I barely managed to nod. I wasn't able to speak for some time, and this wasn't because I had become mute all of a sudden, but more due to the fact that I was in a state of shock. Nevertheless, I was grateful. Finally, some good news. I've met someone who can actually speak my language. I pretended to continue studying the maps, but I knew that my mind was no longer focusing on the old pieces of paper. It took me a while, but I managed to get up and sit adjacent to her at the dining table. I got anxious as my footsteps began approaching the dining table, but her smile as I sat down calmed me a bit. I had to make sure to choose my words carefully. I didn't want to sound like a crazy person, considering the circumstances of my current situation. I began by thanking her for the dinner, telling her the spicy sambar she made was delicious. I didn't mean to start eating first without waiting, but I had been starving. I didn't say this, of course. She was pleased with the compliment and told me before she got to this place she had sold nasi lemak. She told me she knew I was a newcomer here since she's never seen me before. How strange. Did she knew everyone here? Anyway, I then asked her about the monk. I wanted to know why she was so casual with his death. Her answer was that the monk was one of many who have stayed in this cabin. All of them have died in the same manner, clad in armor around dinner time. The Fair Maiden was clueless as I was as to why and where they were fighting, but every time they got back to the cabin, by the time she arrived, they'd be dead. The next individual to come will take care of the dying person in armor. Some were able to get a drink before they died. A few even got to eat some of the food before dying. Usually, she leaves the cabin around this time and just lets the newcomer do his thing. In my case, I had been reading. I wanted to trust her, but I really can't because I feel like there was something she's not telling me. I mean, if everything was like she was saying, then why had she came in with the pitchfork getting ready to attack whoever was inside? And why did she drop the tool when she discovered that it was just only me and the dead monk? What had she been expecting to fight against? Plus, I didn't want to just accept my fate that I was going to die next. I wondered if the monk had known about the series of events, which the Fair Maiden kindly filled in the details regarding the monk, who was oblivious to his fate, since she wasn't able to explain it to him due to the language barrier. She added that she wasn't going to tell me either if I hadn't asked. She didn't want to scare me, but at the same time she wasn't going to lie to me either. She told me she was just confused as I was. When she finished the meal, she played some tunes on a turntable. I hadn't realized that was a vinyl collection before she turned up the music. I got stuck looking at the maps. I didn't even venture the rest of the cabin. The Fair Maiden asked me if I liked smooth jazz, in which I told her I didn't listen enough to that kind of music to have an opinion. She said it was her personal favorite genre before playing Kinda Blue by Miles Davis. As the first side of the record played, she washed the dishes Well, she told me of a story of how one of her friends called her something offensive to her for asking someone she didn't know the name of a song that was being played at a cafe. They were getting lunch. She asked one of the baristas serving what was the name of the song I was playing. She told me to take note that this was before smartphones came up with those apps that can tell you what song you're listening to. The Fair Maiden really liked the song, so she just asked the barista that handed over her coffee if she knew. Though the barista didn't know the exact title of the song, the barista did tell her that they were a band called The Sixth Sense. I told her I liked that band too. I remember that band had a few good albums I liked. She later asked me if it was weird or if inappropriate for her to ask the barista about the music, and I told her if it was me, I would just ignore those kind of comments. I personally find it more embarrassing to ask for directions when I'm lost because my interaction with the person who I'm asking will forever remember me as someone incompetent, since that will most likely be the only time I'll interact with that person again. Ignorance of a song or artist isn't really all that much, but failure to navigate on your own is, or at least to me. I was trying to allude to the fact that I was lost and seeking her help to navigate myself back home. Talking about maps, the Fair Maiden continued the conversation by telling me that one of the many maps that was in this cabin was a map of this whole place. Now that was interesting news. What else did she know? How much can I trust her? Why hadn't she used it herself to leave? Maybe I'll decide at a later time.